Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. This is Matthew Cassinelli, and I'm excited to talk to you today about AI coding and app development for Apple platforms. I'm here today with special guest Rudrank Riyam, and we're going to talk all about Apple development and the new wave of vibe coding. So, Rudrank, welcome to the show.
Hi everyone. Hi Matthew for having me, and it's been exciting that we are both going to Dub again. I get to see you again.
Totally.
And this year has been very different from how it was last year when it comes to coding with new models, especially my favorite right now, which is Sonnet 4, helping me do tasks like before when I was preparing for this podcast, I had Sonnet doing some work on its own on the website. So it's been some good times that we are living in, and very excited to talk about the state of AI development before DubDub.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm curious how many tasks your AI agents will have done by the time we're done with this stream that are
I
working in the
have
background.
not,
Oh, dang. I was going to say that.
I did not, yeah, I did not task them, let them breathe.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I guess before we get started, why don't we talk about why this matters ahead of WWDC? Because I think it, I feel like after DubDub last year, it was like, oh, like Swift Assist sounds interesting. This stuff will be cool. And like in my mind, AI coding wasn't even, that was like, let's think about it versus now it's like, we're 6 months behind and everything has changed, or even in the last 2 weeks, all of it has changed as well. So I guess just what do you want to start with there? Or like what matters ahead of DubDub? Just that we should be paying attention to
So
this?
the thing is, when we say we are behind 6 months, we are not behind 6 normal
That's
months.
fair.
We are behind 6 AI months, and one AI month or even one AI week is a lot. Like this last week, we had like so many events that just pushed us forward many months. So
It's like
Apple
dog
is way
years.
behind because I was going to say that, yeah, it's like dog years. It's more multiplied in dog years. So Apple is way behind when it comes to the software part. And as you said, we were supposed to have Swift Assist last year, and they promised it, but they never shipped. And I don't know what went inside. I cannot speculate from as a from the sidelines, but what I understand is like if you go back and see the platform State of the Union from 2024 and the demo of Swift Assist, you will just go and laugh on that. Like
Yeah.
you cannot have something like that, what we have right now with cursor VS Code Alex Sidewire. So what I expect, like the expectations from Apple is like more than ever, but we also have to keep in mind what the blunder they did last year. So it's like a kind of
Hmm.
I'm stuck. Like, should I expect a lot from Apple this year, or should I just not expect anything? But going on the rumors that I have seen from Mark, who is from Bloomberg, like somebody I closely follow when it comes to rumors, there is some integrations with Claude that will be coming to Xcode. So that is one thing that I'm really looking forward to.
Totally. I think that's why it's like if we were banking off of where we were last year, yeah, it's not in a good spot. But something I was saying on my last stream was just like we see like this stuff is possible. It's not like Apple couldn't figure it out. It does come down to like do they make the choice to or invest somewhere different? But I think we've sort of seen that they kind of have to. Otherwise, it is. I mean, maybe this is like too early to start with, but sort of. I'm curious how like the state of iOS dev if we didn't have iOS coding, vibe coding of like. I mean, I think it was maybe on a normal track or whatever, but it seems like the whole path has changed, and it seems like at least a year ago, I don't remember nearly as many people being excited about actually making apps. And I think that part is what is super interesting. If you're not at all about AI, maybe that's still just normal, like Apple development path. But if you're really into that, I think it's exciting just because at least for me, as someone who's a full, essentially like amateur programmer in terms of actual development, it just makes all of the stuff that I've seen released become possible, or just like I could think of how to integrate that, as opposed to like that's nice to have and will come later sort of situation. Just kind of like changes
One
the
thing that I can, Mhm.
equation on making those decisions.
One thing that I was thinking right now is that even though Apple did not play any role in this AI world for the past 1 year when it comes to the Xcode integration, the apps that have gone to the App Store, I assume, has multiplied. Like they would have seen much more apps out there because a lot of folks who were not developers want started vibe coding using Cursor, yeah, like Sidewire, different AI tools out there to build their apps and publish it on the App Store. So in all, the iOS development ecosystem has grown, even though Apple did not directly take part in that,
Yeah.
which is which is very like in the end, Apple is still getting their 15% or 30% cut
Well, that's a
from the
whole
apps.
that whole part. Who knows how
Yeah,
much that'll change in the future? I mean, that
yeah.
almost is it is super important that is, whether or not, I don't know where that's going or what side is right or whatever, but having something happen with the App Store change, I think now is really important, because it really is. If you think about the last 7 years, like there's not a whole lot of change in the iOS ecosystem. And I think now there's just like, it was either like, it was basically like too expensive to build, or you could go in and go indie, but like, I mean, and there's middle grounds too, but I think just the whole thing sort of really started to get squeezed on either side. And then now is sort of like, you like, if you have an app idea, you might be able to go make it your own now. That maybe indie promised some of that for a while, but I think also, and I think you already had to like be a programmer and be motivated, versus like your friend who's like, I have an app idea, is in theory they could vibe code a okay version of it and have something. Or it's just still, at least for an everyday person, it's not like you have to invest in a whole business and life path to become a developer just to like think of development, because that's honestly why I love shortcuts. Originally was it enabled me to build with technology, but I don't have to design my whole life around just that one slice of it. I can actually put it together myself. So I feel like, but for, I'm getting back to, that's more like personal use, but just for app dev, I think it's the whole world is like, oh, at least for me, it's opened up now, that otherwise I was like watching you having fun over there, but I was like, I just can't. I feel like I'm already too behind as someone in my mid 30s to like start programming now or something. But instead, now it's like maybe it's the best time because we have this tool to help learn. That was a
Yeah,
huge intro, but
I
keep going.
yeah, I just see like when I see on Twitter, people is like, you should go and stop coding or learn to code because like you're doomed. But I am more on the, uh, I'm not a pessimist on this
Mhm.
aspect. I feel like this is the best time to learn to code and to know better on how to code, because even when you are vibe coding, the idea of
Yeah,
vibe coding is that you just give out a prompt and then it will do something. You would just see the output, you're not happy with it, then you just prompt again in English or in your language, and then that's an iterative loop. But if you know what the AI is doing, it just helps you vibe code better.
totally.
Even like there are many places like when I was vibe coding my website, I could not figure out a bunch of things, and because I just do not know much about web development, I felt kind of helpless. So I was just yelling at Sonnet to just do this
Fix it.
somehow, but fix it. But I just do not have any idea on my own how would I fix it. But on the other hand, when it comes to an iOS app or a macOS app, I kind of know where in which direction the AI is going into, and if it's I can just steer it into the right direction if it is making any mistakes. So that's where I feel all the years of coding experience on Apple platforms really helps me, because if I have a very small idea for myself, I can just go out and build it, and I know
Totally.
I can build it myself. But the time that I would take, I don't want to take that time because it's just a very small idea that I just want for myself. So just let the AI do it for me.
Totally. I feel like that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because we're kind of coming from the opposite sides, but I think we
Mhm.
both get that same direction of like, this can almost, I mean, it's just a tool too. And I think I just sort of saw like, if you ignore it, you will be behind. And it is just like, sometimes it's easy to replace Google with AI and say, would you Google it? Like, yeah, probably. Why would you feel morally wrong about Googling it? Like, no. So, like, it's just a different way. I mean, obviously, that's a whole privilege of like, I'm ignoring a lot of parts, but
Hmm.
as a tool, it feels very similar to that. But I think that's why your newsletter. So you're doing AiOS Dispatch. I had
Hmm.
to practice saying that out loud because it's iOS. But no, that's great. I mean, what motivated you to do that and start your newsletter?
So I think I started back in March. My idea was that I was like the rest of us overwhelmed with all the AI announcements out there because every week we would get something that is kind of beneficial for us. And I realized that somebody has to kind of curate it. And why can't that somebody be me? So, and I was anyway posting a lot about that on Twitter. So I started just taking all the links that I would put on Twitter for the week and just create a newsletter out of it. And I got some good feedback on like people were uh, also felt overwhelmed and they were happy that somebody was doing this, let's say, mundane job for them so that they can just go and read out the newsletter issue and then kind of have an idea like what's going on in this AI world, and they can continue doing their iOS development part, maybe learn something from it. Like today, I was supposed to send the newsletter yesterday, but I'm sending it today because I was building a new website for it. And uh, one of the things I mentioned is this new Jules by Google, where you can have kind of an autonomous agent similar to Codex and Copilot Pro. Copilot agent where you just create an issue on GitHub, assign it
Hmm.
the issue, and then it will create a pull request for you. So there are many things that uh, that helps you, and there are out tools out there, but you may have missed it because you're busy in your iOS development world. So that's my motivation, was that to help other developers have an idea of what is going on in the AI world and how it can help you in your iOS journey as well. For example, we got two new models, Sonnet 4 and Opus 4, last week, and these models are really good for working with iOS development because they are trained. Their training cutoff date is March 25, so they have idea about all the latest iOS APIs, mesh gradients, and I usually
Nice.
check for mesh gradients because I like them. So if they can figure it out well, I would just say that okay, it's a good model. And uh, that's one biased way, but still, like having the latest knowledge of the APIs, the Vision OS 2 APIs, and Swift data quirks, and all the tips and tricks, Sonnet 4 knows kind of has experience with it. So that's something you should know as a developer if you're working with AI assisted coding. That okay, if in the past some other model was not able to do this, this new Sonnet 4 model can do. Maybe in the future there will be some other model that can easily solve more bugs that Sonnet 4 cannot. So you need to be updated. It's not you need to be updated, but you can be updated when
Yeah.
you follow my newsletter.
Well, especially it's just like the stuff will change, and if you didn't notice, it was
Or tell
like
me about it.
the thing you did for the next 3 weeks could have been
Yeah.
done in a minute from that stuff. So that it makes a lot of
It's
sense.
like I think on the last Tuesday I slept early, and when I wake up in the morning and there's my whole Twitter feed is just flooded with so many new announcements. Like the world just changed by a few months.
Yeah,
Uh,
that makes sense, especially overnight. I have that. I just imagine that the East Coast gets like a little better because they're already doing it. By the time I wake up, stuff has been happening for 3 hours for me too. So it's the same thing. Totally get it. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I think it's a great resource, and especially is just only going to be more valuable as we go because
mhm.
it's going to change even faster. And I think that's what's so hard is as a developer for Apple platforms, you probably got used to this pattern of like I need to pay attention in summer and put my head down during the fall and then like play around during the spring. And it's like no, that cycle is like Monday through Friday now with AI stuff.
It's not even Monday to Friday because some companies are shipping on weekends as well.
Yeah, that's true. God, gotta love Silicon Valley.
Mm.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I think we kind of covered Apple's progress since WWDC. Is there anything else there we should mention, or just we sort of saw it? It's like a not what we saw isn't really what we need, and then there's some rumors, but otherwise, not much movement for AI specific stuff ahead of WW.
I think I was expecting, like, I would say I'm one of the most hopeful persons who have been publicly asking about when will Swift UI come out. I've been asking since Swift 16.2 Xcode, then 16.3, 16.3.3, or 16, I don't remember, 16.4,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of obvious before the release of 16.4 that they would not ship because there were rumors that the CD is like moved till the end of this year or even next year. So those hopes just kind of died down. And what I, as a optimistic person, is assuming is that the Xcode team is grinding very hard on working on this Xcode integration, AI integration for WWDC. That's why they haven't shipped much in the past few months for the Xcode 16. So Xcode 17 is something that we all can look forward to. Let's see. I hope I'm not disappointed.
No, I mean, I feel like that is inevitable. I mean, I've seen some people talk about like Apple better kill it with Xcode, otherwise people are
Mhm.
gonna like move away. And I think I don't. I'm curious, like, what other tools can you use now to take advantage of this stuff that so you don't have to wait for
Mhm.
what Apple's doing?
So for full disclosure, I worked with a AI tool that is meant for Xcode called as Alex
No,
Sidebar.
I want to know
Uh,
specifically about it. That's why.
yeah. So Alex Sidebar is essentially Cursor for Xcode. So if you have used Cursor or VS Code or Windsurf or any other AI tool, you will realize that there is this friction with Xcode that you have to overcome when you're building apps, when you're running apps, when you're debugging them, logging into console. You can try all the, like, I have advocated for all the tools out there, Xcode Build MCP or the Swift Pad extension that helps you kind of bridge the gap, but it's still, you're kind of gluing it all together to make it work. It's not a native integration.
Mhm.
So that's where I love where Alex Sidebar comes in, because as the name suggests, you have your Xcode window, and on the right you have a Alex Sidebar, a sidebar where you can have a native chat integration, but also like when you have some errors or warnings, you can directly just click on add warnings or add errors, then it will start working on that. And it can also build. One thing that has been bugging me is that you cannot use the Xcode build system. It's different from the Xcode build that you use the in the terminal, because
Hmm.
the command that you use in the terminal is usually for working on your CI pipeline, or and it's not meant for production use every day. So what Alex Sidebar does is that I'm assuming it just hacks into the accessibility APIs to click on the play and pause button. So it's like it's just building and compiling the app using Xcode's internal system. So it's much faster.
Yeah.
And if there are any errors or any warnings, then it can just get it back into the system and work on it until your apps builds successfully. So the feedback loop is much better than working with Cursor. You can do the same in Cursor now as well, because it can run it and build it again and again, but it's much slower, especially with iterative builds. So having that native integration is something I love about Alex Sidebar, and it's a good tool, and it has some free trial as well that you can try out. And this is one aspect. The second is using Cursor. I still feel Cursor's UX is very smooth. They have been working for like
Hmm.
thousands and thousands of files, like with enterprise organizations. So you can feel the amount of work they have put towards making it very smooth. So when you're working on a feature, you can use Cursor to kind of create a app if feature or work on an issue, and then kind of just use it directly in Xcode. So what you are missing as a developer is the native integration, which is kind of free.
Yeah.
Because once you get used to working with Cursor, obvious, or Alex Sidebar, you as a power user will run out of credits very fast, very fast. Like,
That makes
like
sense. It's a
I can run, I can run out of the 500 credits in 3 4 days max when I'm working on very hard on something, and like in Alex Sidebar, I can run out of the 1,000 credits uh, maybe in a few days. Like when I was working there, I would just when I use Alex Sidebar to work on features on Alex Sidebar, and it was very easy to run out the credits.
hmm.
So that is one aspect that I assume Apple will fix. But looking at how we have a standardized pricing of $20 per month for these AI tools, I assume that we would get some Xcode Plus subscription where you
Hmm.
have some amount of credits. But what I am thinking is like how you have the Xcode Cloud integration, where you have 25 hours free with your Apple developer membership. Apple will also provide something like that, like 500 messages free with your Apple developer membership per month, and then you
Totally.
can buy more on top of that.
I feel like it would be smart, whether or not they could do this or financially they should, but giving you like a lot for free to basically convince you to use it rather than something else, I think would be that's just like a eat the cost in the short term, but like gain back the entire world of iOS development would be a solid move.
Yep, that is the thing with big tech. They can eat the cost.
Yeah, I
Like
think they have
if
the
you
money.
see, they have the money. Like you see Microsoft, they have premium unlimited request right now up till 4th June. So I got the Copilot Plus program 5 days ago. I have done 2,500 requests in 5 days. But because
Use it. Yeah.
and it's a lot. And if I had to use Cursor for that, I would have already paid $100.
Yeah.
And so that is the thing with they can eat the cost. And I think Apple, after this what do you say, all this backlash on this on their AI integration, they would be very generous with their AI integration for us
Yeah. I think the
because they
only
control the whole system.
the
Yeah.
only question would be if they're losing App Store money, they might want to make their money back somewhere else. And like obviously the AI usage is going to be one of the bigger costs in the long run. But even still, like doing just this first 6 months would go along like the same thing that you're doing. You can at least just run with it and then sort of figure out. I guess because sort of what I'm wondering is what's the issue with paying for it beyond just like obviously escalating costs. I think I would struggle with paying for vibe coding essentially because I don't. If it's like if it doesn't work, I'm just undoing it and paying for it. I mean, there's obviously not spending money you don't need to is valuable, but is it? Do you think it's like more worth to get the most out of the what you can for the subscription, and then do you switch to another tool, or is it like one of them is so good that it's worth paying for to even once you hit that limit?
I think there are two aspects to it. One is like if you're just a hobby developer, you do not want to go on paying so much in the tokens and credits on a tool that is not kind of making you money back.
Yeah,
And one is like if it is working in your favor, let's say you get the $200 plan with for OpenAI using the codex, and you are creating issues that it is working on its own. So it's like you are getting an intern that you are kind of delegating the work to, and at the end of the day, they are reporting the work back to you. So in terms of that, it's very cheap,
totally.
especially in the Silicon Valley. And this is what I was discussing with a friend. He was mentioning that he's using Opus 4 with Claude Code. Claude Code is a tool that you can directly use in the terminal, but it you have to give it your API key. So all the calls that you do adds up. So he was doing $5 per prompt, but when he said that that amount is like if you consider the cost of an engineer in the Silicon Valley, it's like
Yeah,
10,000, 20,000 a month.
yeah, that's a good point.
Compared to that, if he's spending $50 a day, that's nothing. And if he's
Yeah.
getting the work done as well.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the opposite, that he was spending $5 a prompt every single time for a whole month. But no, I totally agree. I mean, I think that's the like part I paid for I didn't do this. I got to try it again, but I did the like $200 plan because I was like, if this makes me $200, it's worth the money immediately. Like, and less time than I would have done it too. So that part totally makes sense. I was
Like
just curious if there's any
that is.
like,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, the scale thing and just the part of if you're doing it poorly now, it's going to just scale over time and you'll carry a bunch of costs. So,
I feel like I won't say I'm against it, but I feel like when you have kind of a plan where you know you're not billed directly towards the subscription, so you're kind of carefree not to think about the tokens or how much money you're spending per prompt. Like let's say if I'm using this Copilot Pro Plus plan, which is as you it's like $39 and they are eating the cost. It's very obvious. 13 it's very cheap
yeah,
for
that makes
$39.
sense.
I was able to create two websites out of it, a few apps, and the website is sponsored. Like I'm writing a sponsored post, so I
Yeah.
kind of the time I would have spent rebuilding my blog myself versus spending
Just the one
500 or
sponsor. Yeah.
1,000. Yeah, that's
It's a really good
like
point.
$39 is kind of nothing when it comes to that. So it's like just missing out,
Hmm.
going out two times on a weekend, not even, that's it. So that's how I think in that way. But if I had to do all those requests myself using my API key, then I know
Hmm.
it definitely isn't just $39.
I
It's
gotta get
easily
on
500,
Copilot.
$800. Yeah.
You said it's by June. Um.
June 4th. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a couple of days away, but
Yeah. But still, like for $39, they are giving 1,500 requests. So it is very
yeah,
obvious
that's a lot.
Microsoft has the money. They can eat the loss as well
Fair.
to get a substantial amount of users.
You mentioned Xcode MPC before, and I feel like I've heard a
Hmm.
lot about that. Is that something that
Yeah.
developers should be taking advantage of now?
So the idea of MCP or Model Context Protocol, like if you go on Twitter, the bubble out there, it's like it's very overhyped as if like this MCP, this protocol will solve world's hunger. It will not.
Yeah.
Eh, it's just a tool like that helps you. It's a standardized tool that helps you have different API services in one package or one that you can directly use. Different packages. Let's say I use this GitHub MCP very frequently. So it's like I just say that, okay, create a pull request for it or like fetch the issue that I was working on, and then it hits the API directly. So like it's just over glorified functional calling. It's just
Hmm.
making some calls to the function. But this Xcode built MCP, it's the guy Cameron. He has worked very hard on having this local package where you can have all the methods that you usually use, the Xcode builds, as well as there's this Xcode make file. So the idea is that it creates a cache for your build and then uses that. So once you have the first build done using the Xcode build MCP, when you try to build again, then it uses the iterative build that you had. So
Hmm.
when you make some small changes, then you get the same exact build speed of Xcode. So in that
Uh,
sense, you kind of getting the same speed. So this is one of the aspects. The second is some testing parts where you can do the screenshots and use the simulator to see the items on the screen and then test them. So there are some quirks that
hmm.
he's adding on that as a package. So the main idea is that it is a package that has many functionalities if you're not using Xcode or using Cursor. So it augments your workflow of working with
Okay.
a Cursor or VS Code.
Hmm. It seems like it's in very active development. Like he's working on it and stuff, which is awesome. That's great.
Like when you touch on MCP, one really cool thing about MCP that I want to try out is that there's this Figma MCP that I really want to try out.
Hmm.
It's like you have a design that you have already built.
Yeah.
You can either take a screenshot of it and then put it in Cursor, or what you can do is use the Figma MCP. I don't think it's an official one, but you can get the selection of it and it will have all the items that are in that particular screen that you have and then paste that as the context. Then you like what I've seen on the examples, you kind of get the near perfect, pixel perfect
Yeah,
design directly from Figma, which I think is pretty cool example of how to work with MCP.
that's cool. That's amazing. I think that's why like maybe I'm sort of waiting for some of that to shake out and to see like where it'll land a little bit to like have that go direct from design into the code thing in a more smooth way. So I'll be following your newsletter to find out. That's
Yeah,
exactly why you're doing it, which is perfect. I'm curious, is there any like anything to know about the platforms for Apple? Like, is iOS better because there's more apps that LLMs have been trained on, or Mac apps are maybe like more accessible because they're just on the web as well? And so, like, I'm just curious if there's like AI is really bad at the Apple Watch or something like that, if you have any knowledge.
So that's a very good question. And if you see the disparity between working on the web versus working on iOS apps, it's very visible because there is
Yeah.
just much more public code out there for working with the web or with Python backend development. So I feel like when I'm doing web development or when I'm doing backend development, it feels much more smoother to use Cursor with Sonnet models or even Gemini Pro or any other model because they are trained much more on public data that is available for iOS. And you do not have state of the art code when it comes to iOS. Apple does not directly put their code on GitHub, and even the example apps that they have, they are not meant to be used as something that you can follow as a guide. They are only meant to show the features for what they are like supposed to be. So all these codes that you have and all the open packages that you have, these are comparatively relatively less, way less compared to web or backend development. And that's the same when it comes to iOS or macOS or visionOS, watchOS. So it's like iOS has kind of the most example or code that
Yeah.
the models are trained on. So Alex Sidebar, if I have to give an example, it is a macOS app. So when I was working on it, or when you're working with accessibility APIs, the documentation is barely there for accessibility APIs.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the accessibility APIs that you use to make your app accessible. It is the APIs that you use to hack into making kind of automating the stuff to kind of click items on the screen.
Yeah.
So these are barely documented. So when you're trying to work with them, LLMs will kind of suck
Hmm.
because they just do not have the
Yeah, they're just
training data to
guessing.
help you in that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it will just hallucinate on those APIs and just make it something up. And that's the same with watchOS and tvOS because you barely see a, a good example of an open source app for tvOS or watchOS or even visionOS compared to iOS. Like if you see the Mozilla Firefox code base, it's an iOS app that is just out there on GitHub,
Hmm.
and you have Wikipedia iOS app out there. So these are examples of iOS apps that are out in the wild on GitHub, but you do not have really a comparison for the other platforms. So when you're working on the other platforms versus
Hmm.
iOS, you will not uh, hopefully get the same level of support that you would expect when working with the models, the language models.
Do you think that
Hopefully
could,
that will change.
yeah, like
Uh,
how though, other than Apple doing it? Or like other apps open sourcing the old version, but even then that's out of date. Um, I'm just curious what could change here to make that better. I think maybe it does just have to come from Apple's side of sharing more or something like that, or just that they trained it on private data that then it is better at, even though it's not out in the open.
See, Apple won't train on private data
Well,
as far as I understand.
yeah,
But I don't know because I still feel like Apple is the only company in this world which has access to one of the best code. I wouldn't say the best, but the
the
uh,
deepest, maybe. Yeah, I mean their own the first
a
party
lot of
platform. It's pretty
Apple,
huge.
yeah, first party, yeah.
No, but
See,
I agree. I mean, I'm wondering maybe I mean, there's a whole should they or not is the question, but like if somehow they could apply differential privacy stuff that they did where it's like this is what weather apps are like, but that's not
Hmm.
actually the one weather app. But then speaking of Figma, we already had that one where it just specifically remade
Yeah,
the whole thing.
yeah.
But I mean, I'm curious even
So,
from like the human interface guidelines level of like they know what it should be in theory, and so they can do it better than anyone, and just the way that they want you to, they're gonna train that way. That's interesting. I'm just wondering if it's like
like
we're
imagine,
always going to be behind the web on Apple platforms, or if it's just like by definition because of Apple's privacy stance and just like people not giving away their code for free online for their very valuable apps. We just don't have as much sharing as like web is. You can just inspect and look behind the hood and see. Um, but that's all. I just want to see if it's like, are we going to see an explosion of tvOS apps once they figure that out? I mean, that is one of the cool promises of something like this is sort of that the breadth of platforms or the little places where people wouldn't bother to go now could be even easier. And just to follow up on the last stream, um the action oriented design part, Vidit was just telling me that he already built his Apple TV app because he had the shortcuts and app intents integrations ready and then could kind of just apply it to a different platform. So I'm trying to tie the threads together across my streams of like if you do design your actions to be like malleable against these AI tools and then you can iterate against them, you can deploy across platforms without redoing all of that same work. I guess the next thing on
another
oh
thing
yeah,
that
go ahead.
yeah, and so I just wanted to touch on that. It's like what I have been doing this AI assisted coding for almost 2 years now. I started back in 23. At that time, we had GPT 3.5,
Mm-hmm.
I think. I was working on a music AI app, and the idea was that we were using AI to generate recommendations because at that time, that was like one of the coolest things, even though it did not make much sense, but that was one of the coolest things. So what I've learned is that it depends on what you want the AI to do for you and what you don't. So it's like when I'm working on my apps, I do not want it to work much more on the UI side. I like to iterate on the UI myself to make it to my heart's content,
Mm-hmm.
like content hearts. You get the
Yeah.
idea. So, and I do want it to work a bit on the mundane tasks like creating some functions or the logics and actions that I can then iterate on and then separate them. So it's like, and that's a very opinionated choice that you have to make when you're
Yeah.
using this AI tools. Somebody would prefer the UI is done by AI or just want to have the functions themselves. Somebody just wants everything to be done by AI so they can just have the output. Some people who love coding, coding is their passion. They would just want to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
So that is like you have to draw the line where you would want these tools to help you and how much control you want to give it
Yeah.
for your code base.
That makes sense. I feel like I was doing the UI part, but then it was like that was just because that's where I, as an amateur, know where to start. Is what it looks like.
Hmm.
But then I was like, wait, what is this even doing, or why? Is a whole different level. And I was going out into the action design, but then I'm like, this is what I was saying with the did is it's like it's hard once you just have a pile of actions to then make a design out of it again. But I think that's almost why this whole space is so interesting is just the choices that you make in how you choose to develop are different, and it's not just like, well, we need to dedicate 2 days just to put this view together. I mean, I don't know how long it takes, but just that part is different. And now it is just about making those choices. And that's sort of why, even just going back to the platforms, is like most people probably never even would only think about the iPhone or Mac. And now it is kind of like, how does this work across all these in a way that I can realistically ever do versus just like for fun design experience or exercise can be interesting. But if you're never going to actually build the tvOS app, who cares? But now maybe you can do both sort of situation. Yeah, that's cool. I feel like we should talk about app intents too, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a like obviously that's my bread and butter, and I think it's super intriguing. I think it's I've been struggling to like understand where it could go, because partially because I'm still just finally wrapping my head around the whole opportunity now. I mean, do you have any initial thoughts on app intents or Apple
I have a
Intelligence?
lot of thoughts on App Intents and Apple Intelligence. Like when I got the ticket for this WWDC, I was kind of surprised because I've been a critic of Apple Intelligence on Twitter for some time.
That's
Because
fun.
I got the iPhone last year thinking it said it was built for Apple Intelligence, but I still do not see some good intelligence coming out of this model. So when they released the video on integrating Siri and Apple Intelligence last year, one of the longest, or it was like almost 30-minute session.
Yeah.
In the end, they showed a demo where you can have your albums, where you can just take a picture and ask it to add in a particular album and then mail it to somebody. And then we were like, wow, that's so cool. Siri can do that. But when you go back to that video now, that feature is so simple to do with even local models now. It may not be efficient, but you can just put together some photos API and the mail API to kind of generate those function calling and use a local
Hmm.
model like Qwen 3 on device and do that. But we still do not have that functionality that they promised. Uh, so I'm kind of still uh, like disappointed on that part that when you go back see it's like if when you watch the Google's IO and how good or great Gemini is, I had such a good fear of missing out that I was
Totally.
going through what's the price of a Pixel 9 Pro that I can use for a daily driver now, and I was looking at into the Pixel 10 rumors because that's a phone that you want to use now because
Yeah.
iPhone is not cool anymore when it comes to because of these AI integrations that other phones have,
Well, it's
and
totally
Siri
like
still.
the possibility of
Mhm.
what you could do with your phone is what you've always wanted, and now it's like, well, they're already doing it, and like, why do I need to wait? Um, I totally agree. I think that their marketing team is genius for putting that 3 weeks before WWDC, because you're always like, what the hell has Apple been doing? And then it's like, okay, now I get it. But even still, I think there is maybe we're seeing just that like I don't know. It is Apple's choices going down a specific route don't like meet up to the consumer experience that we want now. Whereas Google has, I think on the flip side, like the hardware and some of the software experience, that's sort of where the Apple community has always been harsher on Android stuff. Is that part isn't there in the way that Apple is like ahead on, or whatever your opinion is. But I think the AI side is, of course, always been Google's bread and butter, and I think they're really killing it. I want to see just productizing AI in that way. I think is the most important part of like actually making it so you can do it on a regular basis and just hold the camera up and do those things versus like get a visual search of the plant
Mhm.
or something like that. Is we've had that promise of what you can do with the camera technology for so long, and then I want to see more of them, more from Apple as well.
So
I agree. And I mean, I can say Apple
visual
Intelligence like didn't
intelligence works, yeah.
ship, so that's a whole other thing.
Like visual intelligence is cool, but you see that most of the requests that you make with the visual intelligence feature is kind of routed to ChatGPT, and you just want a native experience for yourself. And there are two ways of thinking on like what I would want to discuss is one is that okay, you just take it at for granted that okay, Apple will not ship, and then just branch out into the other development part, or it's like you give Apple just one more chance, which is this WWDC, and just think a bit beyond. Okay, just assume that Apple would ship what they promise and something better as well. So what can we do for that? The biggest part is having a good grip of app intents because uh, anything that would be personalized for Siri will be via app intents.
Totally.
So it's like all the actions that you have in your apps. This is what they mentioned in the last one of the WWDC videos. Like all the major actions in your app should be app
I
via
know it's
app
and not
intents
just
because
major. It's all of them,
they say
everything,
all
or
of
it
them,
was
but I feel
anything.
like that's too much.
The language, the way they do it
Or
is very going back to the built for Apple Intelligence thing. Is all they technically said was it has enough RAM to run Apple Intelligence. I can see the marketing versus legal argument there. No, but I totally agree. I think that's why I mean, I think that's what they were trying to do. I think in 2023 and before, they were really saying just focus on the key things. And I think what changed with app intents and then the app shortcuts, which is the deployment of the intent into like a pre-made app shortcut, is that those app shortcuts are the primary features. But then within app intents, like anything you can do, even like deleting random stuff, should be possible because then there's just a lot more capability in there. And not all of that gets tied into Apple Intelligence too. Developers can choose which ones to apply. So it is true that for Apple Intelligence specifically, it's mostly just the main key features of your app. Um, but still, it should. I mean,
because
that part of hooking into the apps and being able to operate on it, I think that's what's so hard right now is it didn't ship, and the rumors that like it worked 3/4 of the time, I 100% believe of like it is possible, but whether or not this works well on an iPhone without killing your battery life is usually it's like not there yet. And so I think that's the part that they it's good. It's almost better in the long run that all this stuff was delayed, I think, because if it did ship and then we also got O3 and cursor and all these things, then Apple would have looked even worse. Whereas now what they did, even though they did announce it and didn't ship it, that's bad. If they can now turn it around and ship something that's better, I think that is important because if they come up and do what you said of just now launch
Mhm.
one to one, that's what I imagined it as this version of Apple Intelligence was, is you can say, I have this photo, move it to a different album versus like take this photo and move it to the album and then also check who's in the photo and do these things. Like Siri wouldn't have that hooked up to do both at once. And I think that is what we want. Like we don't want just the one-to-one
Exactly. We just
thing.
do not want simple thing anymore, especially this year.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is that there are a lot of rumors of an iPhone 17 Ultra,
Yeah.
which will have a 12 GB RAM. It will be probably $2,000, but still, like the idea that remains is that iPhone will be very capable of running
Yeah.
whatever Apple Intelligence was promised to us, or like what can be something that is of the level of Gemini, or you can even run your own models at that level
Yeah.
for
That would be
function
sick.
calling. So my idea is that app intents will be important this year. I have done widgets back in 2020, and then I did widgets last year, the control widgets for a startup, and the difference of working with the app intents provider versus the older way is just way different because
Yeah.
I won't say it is the best developer experience. It's not working with app intents, but it still gives you an idea of having a standardized way to give out your actions, very similar to MCP,
Hmm.
or like having a standard way of giving out your actions to this app intents that can be then utilized for shortcuts, the widgets, and then the new Siri as well. So it's like, as you mentioned, having that action driven development where there's an also a term like intents driven development where you have your actions as intents that you're using so that it can automatically be picked up by Siri. And now when Siri is more smart, hopefully we will see those actions picked up. And when you have them already ready, I don't think you have much time till dub, but you kind of get a head start because as soon as let's assume that on 9th of June we get this new Apple Intelligence and App Intents with more features, you are already prepared for it, and then you can use the summer and the autumn to have the best iOS 18. Is it 19 now? It's iOS 19
Yeah.
release uh, in September.
totally. And I think that's I've been so focused on the current time period opportunity, but I think soon I'll have to get away from that because like it'll all the time periods change. But I think the part where this is going to be important for just moving beyond a single app and going to those different platforms or even different hardware things. Like I was tweeting about the HomePod with the screen probably will I
Control
think
widgets.
I was going to
Same
say. I
app
mean,
intents.
I know that I'm
Yeah.
telling you that and maybe we're feeding into the same idea, but it's like there's no way it's not going to be running that, especially because that's just how they do the tea leaves of like they announce the feature a year before and then now it goes on the action button sort of thing. So that part is super
Yeah,
interesting.
action button as well for app intents. But like as I like and the lock screen as well, all of them are kind of powered by app intents now. So the idea of having all these actions out of your app is what is or will be the new way of working with the apps where you have more actions outside the app that you can use or having a way to personalize it for yourself. And that's where, as a developer, having a good idea
Yeah.
on working with app intents help. Not the main thing that you would want for your product or your features, but still having it's an additional thing. And that's where
Well, it's like the
I think AI
foundation
assisted
that
coding helps as well.
it
Yeah.
holds those things up. And I think also like lets people really hook into it. I'm still super interested in.
And one other thing, like before
No, sure, go ahead.
I feel like Apple is promoting a lot of apps because it's in their vested interest to have apps that are using app intents
Definitely.
to be promoted on App Store. Like I saw this app Tripsy,
Oh
which
yeah.
had this app intent Apple Intelligence
Did you
event
know that
card,
I
and
worked
it
with them?
was like
I built that with them.
I do.
Okay, I was gonna say. I thought you were just teasing it. I was gonna say, yeah. What a great. Yeah, I really like their
Yeah,
actions. Totally. I think that's
but
why
uh,
it. Even what they did, I wasn't even really like ahead of it. They partnered with Raycast on their launch too, and I think that's
mhm.
the whole part of building on top of your app and hooking into the other apps and building shortcuts for your community to then like do those natural integrations. I think that part is super incredible. Even just like adding AI on top of those on your own to then just like make what would otherwise be instead of a simple shortcut turn it into an intelligent one too, but then it hooks into your app as well. I think is super cool. And that I mean there's so much opportunity with whether apps can like manually integrate with other apps through app intents. I think right now isn't possible, or you can by like providing a shortcut, but even just having sort of the interface part hook directly into another app or something like that. I'd love some of that. That's why just like so much customization. I'm even thinking if there's a redesign, maybe there is this. This is why like the pie in the sky version of what could happen is super cool because like what if you really did just have your actions and then the design changed depending on the platform? Like obviously that's how it works now, but even then like if the OS, I'm just thinking of skins, like if they redesign iOS and I think with the trends they've gone to with home screens and changing the colors and stuff, it's like I could see them having, they kind of already have skins in that way, but like inside the app letting you apply different designs for the same thing or something like that. Maybe that's a whole other level of work that maybe developers don't want to do, but
I just hope that iOS 19 is just not about the redesign and also has some cool stuff
that's
apart
sort
from
of why like
redesign.
like redesign the UI versus redesign the UX. I think that's what I'm thinking of like how apps work together and in just like you can choose whether you want light mode or green mode or I want to add material design or whatever. Like I think I'm just sort of thinking I don't know if this is the time for the shoe to drop with Apple, but just even for AI assistance is if I can install Gemini instead of Siri and it can use app
That is one of the
intents.
rumors.
Yeah. Well, I thought the rumor that I assumed that was instead of just ChatGPT integration, you could have Gemini integration versus literally like
So,
no Siri at
mm,
all. Maybe
No
I just
Siri at
missed
all.
it.
Like that was the rumors.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of the rumors was that you can change the default assistant. So instead of Siri, you could have
Yeah. See,
something
that's why.
entirely
So
new.
that plus app intent, it's like yes.
That would be
That's why I'm like,
amazing. Like
it's almost
imagine.
like too obvious that to me, like because it's so. But like, I think a great example of there's no way they could ever do this if app intents didn't exist, and I think
Hmm.
I don't know with Google. I don't want to say that they can't do that, but I think that's the part that I'm still so bullish on is that they already have app intents and that they've been doing it for 3 years. Not like people think they just started thinking about AI this year and really don't understand that they have this extensible platform to build off of that integrates with all the apps. And I think going back to like our earlier conversation about why people are developing iOS apps, and even though the web is better, I think it's because you can make money on iOS, and I think that's one of the biggest things is like everybody sees that opportunity, and that sometimes this is the whole meta thing that I don't even know if I have a great point, but that's what is fascinating about the App Store fee happening right now is that like there's just this mix of like, I mean, and maybe it is just people want to make more money, and Apple's, it is true that they've sort of held back or like not provided enough directly back to you even as a developer to make this better. So I can see why people have been more bothered by it, but it's a at the same time like they're kind of by like holding onto their bag too tightly, they're like maybe missing some of the next wave of iOS development because people want to do this. Like I think that's the we all still want to make an app for that, and the first idea that you had sort of thing. I think that's what's fascinating about this is even as we AI is so cool, a lot of the best and brightest minds are still trying to make Apple apps with it. Just kind of
But at
fascinating.
the end of the day,
It
because they
doesn't
have the
matter, but yeah.
distribution and
Yeah,
they
totally.
have so much of distribution on App Store, and I am I would say that the 15% that I'm paying to Apple for the distribution that they give me with the App Store and managing all the whole purchase pipeline that they have, I don't mind paying that 15% till 1 million, which whatever it is. It can be 10%, but then like there would be like when I did a 10, then I would be like, okay, it should be 5%. And
Yeah.
there should be a number where you have to pay Apple something uh, because they are doing a lot of the grunt work for you, which you don't have to kind of worry about. And
Yeah.
you can just focus on making apps and most out of the App Store. And the another thing is a lot of people have started developing for apps, but developing apps for App Store, but it's still the same. Like I was trying to ship a feature and then AI did the whole feature for me in 5 minutes, and then I have to wait a whole
5
freaking
days.
day
Yeah.
for the App Store review. Like a whole day for an App Store review. That's a whole AI day for App Store review. Uh,
Yeah, I
That's why I
totally
was like,
agree.
I would just focus more on not web apps, but if I have to choose the new, I don't know, like publishing on the web is so much easier. Like I work on a feature and few minutes it's live. I don't have to wait for
Yeah.
anybody's permission,
I'll say that's what
especially
I
a
do with
whole day
shortcuts.
or two.
Shortcuts is a
Yeah.
unique blend of you can take an iOS app and share it for free on the web. I will say, on the flip side, I don't have an app store and I want one. That would have been very like the distribution part is very real, and I spend more than 15% of my time on getting my stuff in front of people. So I think that's a huge thing. Even okay, this is I saw this from earlier from Connor. Do you think there's a future where we can have an app store for MCPs or app intents? I think that's I don't know directly about
I
buying
mm,
intents, but building them and discovering them would be very cool. Um, what do you think about MCP?
I won't think there would be a big market because MCP, as the idea that I said before, it is still overhyped as of what it is right now, and it's just not ready. It's like especially when you're developing for it, you will realize how hard it is to develop and add more features and edge cases, and it's working with authentication is another level of nightmare. So work like having a store like if you see Windsurf, they have a marketplace where they have authorized plugins that you can just use, like directly click and work, which is kind of great. And I think every IDE that's kind of the client MCP clients that they will have their own marketplace, but uh, overall marketplace as such is something I'm not looking forward to. Like I would not buy a MCP
Yeah.
because unless it's really proving worthy of what it is. And to be honest, it's not. The free ones out there, they are making my life easier, but not in a way that I can pay so much for it. Because the GitHub, like let's say the GitHub MCP, you provide it here with your GitHub credentials, and then it can just directly use the GitHub API directly in
Mm-hmm.
the, and it is a wrapper over the
Yeah.
API, right? So it can just use it directly.
Hmm.
So why would I even pay for it if
Yeah.
there was a marketplace?
I mean, that's sort of this existential issue that I had the same with shortcuts of like, once you have them, it just does the thing, and it itself isn't a service worth paying for. But I think a
It's the same when
discovery
I'm writing my.
mechanism could be
Mhm.
nice. I think that's half of what the App Store provides. But like, why do you go there is a question too.
Like when I'm writing my books 3 years ago, it was like, okay, I'm writing this chapter because you cannot find much information about it on the internet. Now it's like, I'm writing this chapter because you cannot do 4 or 5 prompts and get the answer. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of helping you create it because it's about like how much prompting you can do versus just reading my book. Just use my book as a context for your prompting now. Like the way have started writing now has just changed versus how it was before,
Yeah.
and a lot of things
Did you tell
kind
us
of.
about your book? I don't think you mentioned it yet. Is this your academy?
I am not, yeah, yeah. So the thing about the academy is very how do you say? So it's academy, and back in 2020, I wanted to apply to Naples, Italy, Apple Developer Academy, but then COVID happened, so I
Mm,
could never apply. So I always had this thought of attending an Apple Developer Academy, and when I went the one in South Korea, I was so fascinated by it. I was like, I will just create my own
yeah.
store of books and then call it a Rudrank Riyam Academy.
That's awesome though.
Just for the fun of it. And so I have two major books that I'm working on for the rest of this year, which is one is on AI assisted coding, on how you can make the most out of the AI tools and the models out there. And the second book is on AI itself, on how you can use, like, let's say, MLX Swift package for running on-device models and for vision or audio. Like a new chapter is coming on for
Nice.
that. So, like everything that you can do on the AI part uh, with iOS development.
Nice. That's cool. Where can people find that or like what's the best way to keep up and hear when that's all finished? Just on Twitter or something like that?
So
Or
yeah, Twitter is the best place because I'm struggling. Like, I don't think I'm doing a good job on having a change log because it is changing so fast. When I'm updating one chapter,
it's
next
already
week, Cursor
wrong.
is out with a new feature. So I
Totally.
need to maintain a change log. So that's what somebody asked me as well. Like, it's better to just have that in a newsletter because I'm not going to go back and download your book again and reread it
That's
because
fair.
something new changed.
Do you
So.
follow Jordan Morgan? He does that best in class iOS app book.
Mhm, mhm.
It might just be have some strategies you could learn from him of doing the change log or whatever because
I used
he
to
has that
get,
same
yeah,
issue.
he was giving one, but the thing is, at least the cycle for iOS is 1 year,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
the cycle
So
for AI is a few weeks. So,
just every few weeks,
so
just
my
republish a
focus,
book.
yeah. So my idea is to just focus more on the concepts now versus the IDE itself.
Yeah.
Like, because all the IDs are converging to the same point of having autonomous. Like, so one thing I would
Hmm.
want it to have in this conversation is this idea of agentic coding, because this word's agent has been it at this point it just sounds like crypto.
Yeah.
Like everyone is like, okay, just slap agents everywhere and it will just solve everything for you. And the idea of what I think agents are is that from going from one point A to point B of what you had in your mind versus what's the outcome, agents will have access to a lot of tools that it can use to reach that point B in number of steps, which
Yeah.
is not predefined. It can use the internet, it can use different files that you have, it can run builds for you, like in Xcode, or like write tests for it, write some scripts, like do everything it can in its capacity to reach to the solution. And that's what I call like agentic coding.
Hmm.
And like the models now are trained, like this Sonnet 4 model, it's trained pretty much on agentic coding. It will do it will like go through the files, it will search the web. If it wants more information, it will run the builds for you on Xcode to see that everything is passing. If it's not, it will get the errors from it, then solve them, run the build again. You don't have to do anything. You're just a spectator looking at it in
How is
awe.
that different than vibe coding? I guess you intentionally do look at what it does. Maybe that, I mean, that's the whole vibe coding part was like, I did specifically wouldn't even look at what it showed me and just go on to the next feature right away.
What I think of vibe coding, the word again is everything in the AI world. It has been overhyped, right? The
Yeah,
vibe coding was by somebody who worked on the models, like the
that's
earlier
true.
models of GPT. That guy has a lot of knowledge.
He's got the
He
vibe
can code
in him already. Like he
in
knows.
himself. Yeah.
Yeah,
He can do the vibe coding part without the vibe coding itself. Like he can code everything he wants, but now he's just vibing, right? That is not what a somebody who is into like a beginner should do, because you just have no idea what you're doing. But
totally.
the guy who said this word, he has all the idea of what he was doing, at least the fundamentals of coding it on that part. So if there's a for loop that is working on a conditions, he has
He
an
knows what to
idea
do,
of
but
what's
yeah.
happening,
I
what
could
to do
vibe
with it
shortcut,
if
but I
AI messes
couldn't
up.
vibe program. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly. I think that's why, like, if you were like me and tried it, you're like, get 5 prompts in, and you're like, why isn't it working? And it's like, obviously, this is not how apps are made. Like, but I still think that was even 3 months ago, and what Codex can do is maybe more
Mhm.
along that line. So I think that's why, to me, even though like vibe coding is like obviously a joke, but that's why I was like, I want to see what you do. It like people who actually know how to code vibe coding is cool, and people who don't is like it's exciting, but that's maybe the limit of it. It's just exciting and not actually a thing you can fully realize. But I think that's why there's, to me, it at least is it's like a directional change in the interest
Mhm.
in programming, and not like it was necessarily like down in the dumps or whatever, but just I feel like there was less interest for an average person for sure on like, oh, I have an app idea, actually I could never really do that, versus now that possibility is with the realm, it's within the realm of possibility. And that's, I think, to me, the same promise of shortcuts originally and Apple turning it into Apple Intelligence. I think I still don't see as much, ironically, being so like embedded in this world. I don't know if like people are going to be like vibe coding shortcuts using the AI integrations, and then that's this middle ground where they can get the advantage of it, but they don't know programming fundamentals, so they shouldn't have to understand that part. That's
Like
up
to
to
give you
Apple
an
to kind of figure
example
out
on
better, for shortcuts at least.
like to give an example on the vibe coding part. So whenever I when I was covering the Anthropics conference, which happened I think on 21st or 22nd of May, I think it was 22nd. So I was in a lot of excitement. I was posting screenshots from YouTube directly on Twitter without adding an alternative description,
Mm.
and I felt guilty of it because last year when I was covering WWDC, somebody had mentioned like your images are not accessible when using voiceover. So what I wanted to do was just create a very small app, use one of the Vision APIs
Oh
out
yeah,
there for free, and kind of vibe code the app. Like I don't want to have the production ready code
yeah.
for this, right? I just want a very simple app that I can just use. So I just went to Cursor, asked it, okay, I had my requirements very explicit. I want an app that can uh, just take an image from the clipboard. I will just save it to the clipboard, use an free API that I provided the link with and the model as well, and just create an app out of it where I can provide the API key and you provide me. You just paste back the all description back into my clipboard.
Yeah.
I was very explicit about my requirements, and then I got the app that I wanted. Took me 10 minutes to get this app, then a few hours to kind of vibe craft it. It's a word I
I like it.
like to use. So it's like I'm crafting the UI for it.
No, yeah, totally. What do you think there's a world where like you make that app and then hand it off to someone else who like markets it? Because I think that's an interesting part that for like someone like Jordy Bruin who can like spin up a whole new app in an hour or like 5 minutes even of for someone like or you too, it's like it's not worth it for you to invest a business in this, but that idea and that app is still something that millions of people might use. And
Hmm.
how do
Hmm.
we like? I don't know. Like it is an interesting thing that there's probably of all the engineers right now who are using AI, they probably all have incredible tools that they've built for themselves, but no one's productizing them because it's not $1 million business or whatever.
Yeah, that's
It's
where AI can
fascinating.
come as well. Like just this app that I made, I can like hypothetically have AI generated videos with voiceovers generated
Yeah,
by
with
AI as
VO.
well, which with also has the
That's
script generated about this app, and then just post it on directly on TikTok. Okay, do you know how to add all descriptions? You don't have to, just use my app. And all of this is not done by me. This is a
well,
AI
it's
generated video, which
have you seen the
Mhm.
VO stuff? It's freaking that
Oh,
honestly is like I'm there's some part of me that's like this seems irresponsible to like do this well of like you could have a whole AI generated video of two people at a conference showing them the app and no human was ever involved. Yeah, that is wild. I think whether or not that really converts in the long run and helps people discover it versus just gets views. I mean, I don't know. At a certain point, why does it matter? Like this is I'm having an existential crisis right now as a video content creator and also and
the thing is, in the at the end, it is still about AI cannot get you the distribution or the authenticity that you get with the
yeah,
distribution, right? Like when you are out there with your 26,000 subscribers and putting out a video talking about Apple Intelligence, people are looking up to you and getting the information from you versus just prompting out on how to work with app shortcuts, right?
yeah,
So you still have the command as of now
totally. I mean, like
on
I
the
me personally
distribution.
is fine, but it's still just even like I don't know, just the part where you can deploy a whole marketing arm with TikTok generated videos and get views
Hmm.
for is I don't know. Like what struggle with is that it just like removes anyone from the process. That, but then again, like, does it matter if the person got the captions and stuff like that? Like it, I don't know. But there is just
If it
this
is
level of
providing
slop in
value,
the middle that's
yes, yeah.
just like random AI videos that no one really made and no one is really watching or something. I think that's the part is
But
the
the
dead
part is, if
internet.
the videos are good enough and the voiceover is also good enough with the script, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
AI slop anymore, like how
exactly.
you
That's
used to
who
call it.
cares.
Because, look at the video. You like with a straight face call it AI slop anymore?
Yeah, I mean, well, more, I guess, less slop in terms of the content, but more just
Hmm.
like what's even happening at that point. On, I mean, the part where the person gets what they need, I think, is the important part to focus on. But just where like suddenly your app has 10,000 TikToks that are all AI generated, and no one and people are watching them, and I don't know, it just is the thing of like at least along the chain there was economic value created that I think otherwise now it's just like just the one to one and then I don't know. I this is maybe beyond the scope of the stream, but it's I just am fascinated that it's
Yeah.
that good and that you actually could. I think that's why I don't really know where it could go, but that Google did that at that level is impressive because there's I've just seen that one gas station video where it's like two guys going to the gas station and the clerk is talking to them, but they're like, oh yeah, but this app does it or whatever. And it is, it's just uh, inflection point, I feel like, where it's like the Will Smith eating the spaghetti thing of that was
Oh
insane
yeah,
2 years ago, and
that
now
was
it's
the
like
test.
now you're like, dang, that spaghetti looks pretty good or something like. um, okay, I feel like we should wrap up because otherwise we can keep going
Uh-huh.
on every other AI topic. Do you have any advice to people heading into WWDC about what to pay attention to, or maybe how to refocus once it's done?
Make Mhm. So this will be my fourth WWDC and the third one with ticket. And I am excited more on the possibilities on what I can do as a content creator, especially on the Swift Assist, like the Xcode plus
Mm,
CI side. Uh, what advice I would give? Let's say if I have to give an advice to myself, at my younger self, would be to be calm during the keynote, because last year I was very excited on every single thing that Apple released,
that's
and
fair.
I felt like an Apple a fanboy. But I don't think I would do the same again this year. I would go with a more unbiased view and just see what all Apple does, because it's more on Apple's. It's not an Apple's. So it's not an. The ball is not in Apple's court anymore. Kind
Yeah,
of such like they have to kind of prove their metal now, because in State Wars they lied to us. They said that Swift Assist was coming later last year. It never did. So we developers have been lied to, uh, and they have to make up for that.
yeah,
So what I'm expecting is first the Xcode plus AI integration, where you have Claude's model based on the rumors. So
hmm,
that if they actually pull that off, that would be really good, because I have used this Sonnet Form model like crazy. I have been rate limited on all the
yeah,
AI tools platforms, so I know how good this model is. Second is I'm expecting a lot more from the core ML team, because last year they showed a demo, but even that never shipped. Like the Swift
yeah,
Transformers demo that they showed, there is this MLX Swift community that is slowly building. MLX is a framework for on-device machine learning. It was supposed to be only for machine learning researchers, but now you can create apps out of it. So I'm hoping there would be some sessions on that. These two are the things that I'm really looking forward to. There will be some changes in Swift UI. There would be some significant changes in app intents. This is what I'm
totally.
assuming. But and like based on the rumors, Siri won't get a stage. It will be like more on the backstage, and I'm kind of okay. I
Yeah,
won't say I'm okay with that, but it is what it is as of now.
I want it to
But
come out when it's ready, not don't do the same thing again where you think it's ready and it's not. Like I just want it to be
it
good.
is not.
Um, totally, I agree.
So yeah, so from the Apple's perspective, or as a developer's perspective, going to WWDC, my idea would be the same. There are new labs this year where you can attend online sessions, which wasn't there last year. So just register for most of them. I have, and these are on the later dates on 12th and 13th. So you still have some time
Yeah,
to go in between and play with the APIs. If you are joining WWDC in person, there is this conference called as One More Thing on, and there is this kind of an AI day on June 11th. So from the beginning, which is like 9:30, I have a um, talk, which is like what's new in AI ML.
yeah.
So I was brave enough to take this responsibility of creating a full of 30 minutes, 45 minutes presentation. Uh, like in like how many 48 hours,
Yeah.
not in 48 hours, it will be I don't know how I'm going to pull that off, but the main idea is like we will cover or like kind of vibe code. I will vibe speak
Your vibe keynote.
uh, vibe something on the stage for 30-40 minutes. Then there's expert sessions on that day, a
That's
lot of
Wednesday, right?
on-device talks.
You said?
Wednesday, yeah.
Okay. Um, I will
And
say
in the evening we
everyone
Mhm.
should be going to that because I'm doing my meetup the day before at Community Kit, but I basically want to use that as a testing ground for some of those ideas. And then I want to like basically whatever we come out with that conversation about what's new with app intents. I want to like help
Mhm.
you to then communicate to the next crowd the next day. because that's perfect. I feel like that's exactly
because
why I wanted to do this stream too. Is we're both hosting AI meetups essentially at WWDC, and so I feel like a back to back will make sense.
So, yeah. So I'm very excited about your event as well. I feed up the lunch for your event, the Apple Intelligence one, and you all should go. And the next day there's an AiOS meetup. So the idea of AiOS was AI plus OS, very simple, as simple as that could be.
Mhm.
And there's also a vibe code and chill
What is that?
night on June 11th. The idea is that we will just wipe code on whatever Apple releases in terms of the AI integration, and uh, we will play with the latest APIs and just call it a night.
Is
And
that
we have
at one more
snacks.
thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Just after the meetup.
Nice. That's awesome. That's perfect. Because that's totally why, like, I just want to build with this stuff. And that's my favorite part about WWDC is everyone's super excited and has their laptops sitting there ready to go. And I think that's why almost like the AI stuff does change it. It's like, instead of like, man, this will be so cool when I get to it in 3 weeks, it's like, no, let's do it now.
No, and
like,
3 weeks
wait?
is a lot of
Yeah,
time. Yeah,
everything will
like
change by then.
I
So-
am, my plan this year is to at least have a test flight ready by Thursday of an app
Yeah.
that I
Oh,
would
yeah.
wipe code. Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the same. See, this is my problem. In my mind, I'll have the same thing, but I don't know how to program, so I can't have the actual fundamental. I'll have vibe coded my idea and the action intent oriented design for it, but not the actual app itself, probably. But that's again why I want to connect with people like you. I think that's what's again so much fun about vibe coding too. Is I think I'm just using that as an umbrella term, but just for developers, I would hope it would help them connect more with. I don't know if I'm not necessarily a product person, but just the people and more focused on the goals and the jobs to be done of the app and less of like, where is the curly brace in the right spot and stuff like that, so that we can kind of.
You still have 2 weeks
Yeah, that's true.
to kind of ship an app.
Got to
You can
get
set a
Alex
deadline for
codes.
yourself.
The one thing I was realizing is I think my app idea came with something that I think is going to come out at WWDC, and so I'm trying to figure out. But I think I can add it in.
I would
so.
love to be share logged
Wait, say it
by
again.
Apple.
Oh,
I
Sherlock.
would love to be share logged.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, that'd be the best. Yeah. So I feel like I'll see you at WWDC, and we'll have to start experimenting with our ideas. And so, where can everybody find you? Is it just your main website, or would Twitter be better?
Twitter is where I am mostly active on, even though I feel the website is going down every other day. But
Down with the ship.
it's better to subscribe to AiOS Dispatch.
Totally.
You can find it on rudrank.com. Right now, I'm still setting up the new newsletter integration, so it's better to just use rudrank.com, which is my first name.com.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Great URL.
Yeah.
Nice. And that's all in the show notes too, if you haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I feel like this has been a great stream, and maybe we'll have to do it a couple weeks after, maybe once the public beta
We can
ships or
do
something
it.
like that.
Yeah.
Or just whenever. I mean, that's the point.
We definitely should. Yeah. Let's see if we were like able to hold our words and you should
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of
Let's follow
shortcuts
up.
and app intents.
All the new, we'll use the Gemini integration with app intents to build our next show notes. Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for the time. And it was lovely hanging out with you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.